Hi, everyone. So glad you're tuning in to this powerful episode. We're joined by Dr. Clarissa Castillo-Ramsey, best-selling author, transformational coach, and artist, who's here to share her inspiring journey of resilience and self-discovery. After a life-changing diagnosis, Clarissa found new strength and purpose in embracing vulnerability and what she calls radical freedom. In this conversation, we talk about finding your unique path, overcoming perfection, and learning to live authentically. If you're ready to be inspired to step into your truest self, stay tuned. This one's for you.
Hi there. Welcome to the Empowered and Embodied Show. I'm Kim Romaine.
And I'm Louise Neal. We're two transformational coaches who are also fellow travelers on the path of growth and self-discovery. And we're inviting you along for the ride.
That's right. We're right here in the trenches with you, navigating the ups and downs of life. And each week we'll be sharing our own experiences, bringing you conversations with amazing guests, and exploring insights and strategies that have helped us find more clarity, confidence, and ease in our lives.
And trust us, we do not have it all figured out. We're learning and growing right alongside you.
So if you're ready to rise above the chaos, doubt, and confusion that sometimes life throws our way
and step into a more empowered and embodied version of yourself,
then you're in the right place. Let's get started. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to another empowered and embodied conversation. We're super excited to have you back with us today. So for those of you listening, I am Kim, and I'm joined by my co-host as always,
Louise, that's me, and our special guest today.
Hello.
We are going to tell you all about Clarissa, our wonderful guest today, in just a little bit, but we want to start off today like we start every week. What are we celebrating today?
I am celebrating a book launch. I have a brand new book out called Radical Freedom, and I think I'm going to be celebrating that until who knows. Who knows? I'm not going to stop.
Good reason. That is like worth a massive party of celebration.
Yes, lots of confetti. If I could make it happen,
Yes,
I would. Sometimes Zoom does that, right?
I know. You need a certain hand gesture and it just pops out.
For those of you that can't see us, we're all doing these hand gestures as though there's confetti happening for Clarissa's book.
Thanks, ladies.
So excited and so happy to have you here, Clarissa, to celebrate that with you. It's a super huge accomplishment. That's not an easy feat at all.
Oh gosh. And this book, ladies, came together in less than 2 months.
It's amazing.
That's just over the moon. Like, I cannot even believe it.
Yeah. Crazy town.
Good. Well, we're going to be celebrating with Clarissa all episode. Lots of juicy things for sure are going to come out. Kim, I want to know what you're celebrating.
Ooh, what am I celebrating? I am celebrating vulnerability.
Yes.
Yeah. So one of the things that I always thought I was a very vulnerable, very open person, willing to go there, willing to have the conversations. And I have realized over the years that vulnerability is actually hard for me. I can hold space for people who are being vulnerable. I'm not uncomfortable with them being vulnerable with me. But going there and allowing myself to be truly vulnerable is actually harder than I thought it was. And it's through going to a deeper level and working with my own human design that I was like, this can't actually be a fear gate of mine. This isn't actually. And I was like, oh, it for sure is. It's sneaky the way vulnerability has been showing up for me. And so I've been practicing it with my own spouse, which has been really interesting because, we've been together for 17 years. One would think like I can totally be vulnerable with him. And I can, but I can only so far. Like that's what I've been realizing is I've only allowed myself to go so far. And I think that that's the thing with vulnerability that we so often forget is Like we get to a comfort level with it, whatever our comfort level is. And then, oh my goodness, now we have to learn again to be vulnerable again in a new way. And so that's what I've been playing with, is how to be vulnerable in ways that I am maybe not so comfortable with. So that's what I'm celebrating, is vulnerability.
Good one.
Ooh,
Yeah, juicy.
that is juicy. My celebrations this week come in the form, I think, of gratitude. I'm really celebrating the fact that I have the opportunity to start to design my life like the way I kind of like dreamed it would be, the way I imagined it to be. And I'm actually starting to put some of that into action. And I am so grateful for the things that I have found to help me do that. For the people that I have found, for the resources that I have found. And it's really truly about like opening up to possibility and not being so hooked on like I know exactly what it's going to look like, and it's like right, it's all pink and it looks like this, like somehow I'm describing a tutu in my head, but right, like we get these visuals of how we want to live our lives, and then we get stuck because we don't know how to make it happen. But when we start to get moving and we start to see what things are available to us, like that actually brings that vision closer. It might not exactly look how I imagined it would be, but it has all the components, right? And I've just this week, these last 2 weeks, have been really an opportunity for me to be able to explore what that can look like, and I'm so grateful for all of those things around me that allow me to kind of like make that happen. It's been tingly these last couple of weeks.
That's awesome.
Ooh, tingly.
Yeah,
Did you feel that, Clarissa?
I feel it too. Oh, heck yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's good stuff. All right. Well, before we go any further in this conversation, I think we should give a little sneak peek as to who our wonderful guest is today. Does that feel aligned and good?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
It
Absolutely.
sure does.
All right. So, Clarissa Castillo-Ramsey is a best-selling author, multiple times, award-winning transformational coach, and nationally collected abstract artist. Her top-rated podcast, Painting Your Path, helps midlifers and beyond start living life on their terms by overcoming imposter syndrome, creating a life they love, and moving past perfectionism. The heart of her work beats at the intersection of self-development, creativity, and wellness.
I love it.
Thanks. That felt good.
Good. Sometimes people get a little cringy when I read it back to them. They're like, oh, who wrote that? I'm like, probably you.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So, author check, and we'll get into that. I want to dive into your story and the new book, the podcast. Amazing podcast, so well put together, so informative, and just telling, reaching an audience you have this gift to share with your audience that I absolutely love, and resonate with. And yet, Clarissa, I don't know if you know this, but like you don't sound like a typical podcaster. Like, let's just be real, right? What on earth were you thinking? What like
Yeah.
right?
What
Like,
was I thinking?
what were you thinking? So you tell our listeners a little bit about like what's going on, and I want to dive into like how it feels really scary to me to put yourself out there in a way, in a medium that challenges you, with the condition that you have.
Right. Thanks, Louise. So it didn't start out this way. My voice was like perfectly fine until kind of the beginning of 2023. And I got diagnosed with spasmodic dysphonia, which is a vocal condition that is an enigma. They say it could be hereditary, brought on by stress, check, brought on by vocal overuse, check. And so this happened literally while I was on stage as a speaker at a wonderful event, and I thought I had laryngitis. And it really kind of caught me off guard. And for a good portion of 2023, I was depressed. I continued with the podcast, but the nice thing is I also do summits. So I literally had like 100 interviews that I could pull from. So I wouldn't have to talk every single week. And that helped out a lot. And at the beginning, I kept re-recording, apologizing for my voice. And then one day I just said, screw it. I have to just say, screw it. I'm not quitting. I'm also a coach. Thank God my clients accept me. And the message still can be heard, even though my voice, sometimes I feel like I'm going through puberty. It cracks and whispers, and I never know what's going to happen. But after I felt like I gave myself a good 8-month pity party to really process the shift, the grief, and then I had to say, okay, I cannot let this stop me.
That place of screw it. Like that, I think, is my definition of empowerment.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. 100%.
You gave yourself those 8 months, right, of that pity party. And then you were like, screw it. This is who I am. This is how I'm going to show up in the world. And I'm not going to apologize for it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I felt like apologizing for it just kept me small. And honestly, I've always felt like a misfit. So I feel like in a way, the universe was testing me. Okay, you feel like a misfit? Here you go. Let's see what happens when we play with your voice. And also at the same time, I was feeling a shift coming with my business. I started out helping people move from the cubicle to creative life because that was my path. And I knew I had to start somewhere. But it just didn't feel in alignment with me anymore. And so, again, I feel like everything happens for a reason. And so I also believe that my voice got messed with because it was spirit saying, Clarissa, for not using your voice to its full potential. There's something that you need to say. There's something that you need to talk about. So sit with that.
I feel like it's a reminder to those of us also that it doesn't have to be the loudest voice in the room.
Yes.
Right? Because your voice does matter. What you have to say, what you have to share with the world. And if friends, go listen to her podcast because it's beautiful and grounding and soul filling. And the way you use your voice in the world, it doesn't need to be the loudest because it is so impactful with the way you bring yourself into the world.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And that is who I am. I am the quiet, grounded Taurus. And I think for a long time, especially in this entrepreneurial space where I don't know if you feel the same way, but I did feel like in order for me to stand out, I had to shout it out. Mm-hmm. And, hindsight's 2020. And when I reflect back at who I was at the beginning of my journey, see without judgment how performative I was.
Yeah. I want to underline that performative word because I feel like that is also a key to this idea of being empowered. We cannot be empowered when we are being performative. I mean, that's my thought. Does that land with the two of you?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
100%.
absolutely. Yeah, it's this idea of like, I don't know, I always resisted when I first started my business. I had this image, right, of how do you get your message out there? Like, right, what do you do? All of these things. And I always thought, like, I don't want to be the person on the top of the mountain with a megaphone just shouting into the wind. Like, and that's what all of these things feel like, right? It feels like being on social media or like finding this way. It feels like I'm just shouting, right, as loud as I can to I don't know who. I don't even know if there's people on the mountain. Um, and it wasn't until I started to rewrite my own story that I was like, I don't need a megaphone, right? And I am nowhere near top of any freaking mountain. Like I am climbing up right alongside of everyone else, right? I don't have it figured out. I didn't get there. Um, and it wasn't until that shift though that it's almost the shift from like have to know it all to like I know what I know. And when we shift that place, it goes from this like very like loud outward feeling energy to so much more embodied energy. And it comes from a different place. Then we sound different. Then we share our story in a way that is vulnerable, right, Kim, and aligned, and all of these things. But it's for me, it was a process. Like, but I thought that's where I had to be. I thought I had to be on the top of the mountain, and I thought I needed a megaphone.
Yeah, I did too, Louise. I just felt like I had to be that expert. And, like you said, we're all works in progress. We're all figuring it out. And I used to hate that saying, enjoy the process. It's, enjoy the journey. Like, forget the destination. It's like, really? I just want to get to the destination. And I'm truly embracing the process. And this vocal condition has kind of forced me to just be.
When you're in that space of just being, how is that different than how you were before 2023 when this started to
Oh
happen?
God, Kim. I cannot. I was like a launching machine from the end of 2020 through to 2022. I just was launch after launch after launch, like efforting so much. I loved my clients. I loved the events I was doing, and I kept getting praise from people. Oh my God, you're doing so much. You're doing like so good in the world. And I did feel connected with everyone I was helping, but to the point that I was burning out. I was burning out. And even like at the end of 2022, one of my summit speakers said to me, we were going to go live during the summit. They said, are you okay, Clarissa? You don't look okay. And I was like, really? I don't. And thank God that they said that. So fast forward to 2023, I had to be still. And what a blessing that was, because I feel like I'm finally connecting to the work that I truly feel like I'm here to do. And so the quiet stillness of just being is where you get those intuitive hits and where you get to be creative again. It's not in the rushing around, it's in sitting still.
So part of what we've been talking about is that empowerment space. And I think what you just talked about was that embodiment space. When we
Yes.
are still, we hear a different voice. We hear a different, I'm going to say urging, like
Yes.
moving a different way to move us forward. Tell us a little bit more about how that showed up for you. What was that experience like?
You know, I've been an artist my whole life. And that is what, I mean, I would talk about it, but I would also kind of feel like it was still a separate thing. So in this time of being quiet, sitting still, I really went back to my art and back to like self-care and back to journaling. All the things that I know are game changers for me. And I have to admit, I have forgotten your question, Kim, so I'm just going to keep rolling.
All good. I was checking in with the, like, when you're in that stillness, when you're in that place of going back to self-care and going back to your art and going back to journaling, what is the, what did it feel like? How were you experiencing it in a different way? Because when we're focusing on our thoughts, when we're focusing on thinking our way through things, and if you're in launch after launch after launch, you're super cognitive,
Oh, yeah.
right? You're just heady all the way. But when you're in stillness and when you're in a place of creation and processing, we can stay heady. But my question is, did you experience it in a different way? Did you experience it somatically? Did you experience it in your body?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm still working through the throat chakra, but everywhere else in my body, my solar plexus, my chakrals, my root, I just felt like a voice kept coming back saying, Clarissa, your work is in art and journaling and helping people be self-expressed. And it really wasn't until I got into this quiet time that I also made the connection that what my clients needed the most was to be able to really clearly see themselves before figuring out the funnels, the launches, the offer. Who are they? And that's really what came up for me. And I love body work. The last therapist I saw was a body bioenergetics therapist. So it was somatic work all the time. All the time.
Whew, that is tingly.
Yes.
Yeah. Um, it's always surprising to me how, like, how much we get in our own way when we only lead from that heady place.
Oh,
And
God.
I have this theory, like, we're brought up to very much believe that we can actually think our way through anything, and that all of our knowledge sits above our shoulders. That's our education system, right? It just, it teaches us that that is how we get ahead, that is how we land work, that is how we, that's who we are. Is our heads, our thoughts, like all of those things. It's how we're conditioned. And unless we are very intentional about knowing that we have this connection, like, I think it's almost taught out of us. And yet we get in our own way when we only think with our heads, when we only believe that's, like, we start to believe that's who we are. Um,
Yes.
and I mean, your story, Clarissa, is all about like empowerment. Like, you should have created this podcast because it's like empowerment through embodiment, right? Like they come together, but they come
Yes.
out. They don't come out of your head. Like they come out of the rest of your body.
Yes. Beautifully said.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your What do you see as the biggest challenge or the biggest roadblock that people come up against? If there's so much wisdom in our bodies and we're able to kind of get through this sticky part if we lean in and trust our body knowledge, why don't we do that? Why is that an obstacle?
I think a lot of people don't know how. I think there's a lot of people that have lived so in their head that they have no idea. They have no idea their body's talking to them. And I'm not laughing at people. I mean, that was me at one point in my life. And I think we live in a society, and not everywhere, but especially here in the US, where it's all about the quick fix. Give me a pill. Give me a drug. Let me just mask this pain. Let me just mask how I'm feeling. And so I think part of it is that's how a lot of us grew up, was just with that quick fix. People don't know that their bodies are even talking to them. And I also think, like what you said, Louise, we have been taught, like, knowledge is power, knowledge is everything. And we have kind of forgotten our essence. And I think also so many people are just so fixed. They've got a fixed mindset of, this is how intelligent I am. This is, I'm good at this. I'm bad at that. And we just hold on to those stories, which also kind of just shows up in our body, right? Like with my voice, like something wants to come out. And I think we just get stuck in how we think. And the good news is we also have the power to change that and question those beliefs that don't serve us.
Yeah. It's so funny because as you're talking, I'm feeling the rigidity in the linear way that we've been taught to not just think but show up in the world, right? Um, we find out we're in INFP or right an ESTP, which I think is what my husband is, and I had no idea that even existed. Like we get these letters after our names and we're like, this is who I am. This defines me. And yet we forget that we're these fluid, right? Amorphous, ever changing. I mean, all you have to do is like look at a picture of you a year ago and look at a picture of you now or 10 years and see the change. We all change. We're all constantly in a state of change. And yet we think we're this very linear, rigid, like, this is who I am. And I have to find that very narrow path that I can exist on. Speaking of paths, I would love to know how your experience has led yourself to, or has led you to create this beautiful framework, the Painting Your Path framework that you use, because I believe it helps people understand, see themselves not on a linear, rigid path.
Yes, thanks for asking. And, I published a book in 2020 called Painting Your Path. And I was just thinking about my life and all the things that I accomplished that I was really proud of. How did I make that happen? And it is the basis of what I use with my clients as well. And the very first step, I'll share it real quick, is the first step is to dream. As children, I think if you really want to know the wisdom of the world, go back to who you were when you were 5 and remember that. But the first step is to dream and give yourself permission to see the vision of living whatever life, your best life, whatever that is to you. It's different to everyone, but start there. And like, no judgment. Like, you can create a vision board, you can journal about it, just get it out of your head and onto paper or onto a place where you can see it. And then the second step is to decide that your vision, your dream is worth it, that you are worth it. Empower yourself. Embody it. Feel it. What would it feel like to be living this life, whatever that looks like to you? And then the third step is to make a plan. And I also want to be cautious about this because I think people can get so caught up in how is this going to work? Oh my God, how do I do this? Now I'm scared. Well, as we like to say, F the how for now and just start with a step. Just that's your plan. Start with a step. And step 4 is to be brave and just take that one step forward. And then step 5 is a piece that I think we miss all the time in this go, go, go society. And that's to reflect. Once you've taken a couple of steps, ask yourself, hey, what did I like about this? What was easy? What was challenging? What can I do differently? What can I try next time? And just reflect. And at the foundation of that is self-care. Have compassion for yourself and adopt a growth mindset, which basically means be flexible and just know that you are infinite possibility. Like you were saying, Louise, talking about possibility. And know that anything is possible. What you see in your mind, you can absolutely hold in reality. And that's the framework.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that because it's true, and the dreaming part, I think, is so hard for some people, right? Is like,
Yes.
well, I can't dream. That's not reality. Like, why would I even waste my time dreaming? And it's like, give it a shot. Just if anything, just like it doesn't have to go anywhere, right? Like literally, you don't have to tell a soul. You can write it down, right? And nobody needs to read it or anything. But once you actually start putting that dream down, you actually do start to see a way forward. You actually start to see, like, I think it's both. It's the destination and the journey, right? And we need a compass. We need something that says, here's my North Star and I'm moving towards that. And it's like, that's the dream. Like that's your North Star. If you don't have that, then you're lost. But it starts from a dream. And so many people, so many of my clients too, just they go like, I can't dream. Like what's the point? And it's like, so what you're doing is working for you then? Because it's not. So let's try something different. Let's
I
try.
think that's the vulnerable part that,
Right?
right, that I was talking about. We all have those levels of vulnerability, and it's so scary because having a dream feels really vulnerable. It's really vulnerable, right? I mean, Clarissa, when you were in a cubicle, even though art was always part of your life, did you imagine yourself going out and creating summits and creating this world? I mean, did you see that? Yeah.
I didn't know that was coming. I knew I wanted to escape,
Yeah.
but that was it. Didn't know exactly what's going to happen next.
Yeah. Yeah. It was the same thing for me first in the courtroom, right? When I was the moment I knew, I was like, I cannot do this anymore. I love doing some of the work, but standing in a courtroom and I've told this story before, having a judge tell me, you cannot wear pants in my courtroom. You're a woman. You have to wear a skirt or a dress. I was like, F this, I'm out of here. I am not going to be a part of a system that is going to treat individuals like this under the auspices of justice. Like, no, screw you. So that was that. And so then I found my way to nonprofit. And then when in nonprofit, I was told, oh no, you can't also have this side gig where you're working with individuals, other leaders, and coaching them and supporting them to heal. Like, you can't do that, because they couldn't separate that I could be more than one thing, because I am multi-passionate. I have more than one interest. And I was like, screw this again. Don't tell me who I am. But there's no way in any of those points that I could have told you what was coming. But I had a dream. I did. I mean, right? I had a dream. I eventually had a dream. I could see it with a little bit more clarity. And even to this day, like, if you ask me what's next, what's my big dream? Like, that, it feels scary to sometimes say what my big dream is. But that's where, like, let's embrace a little bit of vulnerability, a little bit of possibility, because someday we may have not one, but two. Is it 2 or 3 books that you have out now?
I have 2 books and a journal.
There we go. 2 books and a journal, right? Because you just took those steps.
Yeah. And I didn't know I wanted 1 book. That was a dream. Fast forward, I've got 3.
Yeah.
I couldn't have planned that.
Yeah. Well, in April, you probably couldn't have planned the one that started coming together in June.
Right. Right. That's right.
So don't be afraid. I mean, it's okay to be afraid. I started to say, don't be afraid to dream, but it's okay to be afraid.
Yes.
But do it anyways.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Find a way. Even if it's a little dream. Even if it's like, I want a dream to not be afraid of dreaming.
Yes. That's a great start. It's a great start for some people, right?
Right? Yeah.
Baby steps.
Yeah. What have we, and I know we could continue this conversation for quite some time, but what have we not said that we want to be sure that people are hearing today?
You know, I would love to just share this new book that I'm in called Radical Freedom. Is 100+ stories, very short stories, very short, very, very, very short, and to inspire. And I am just blown away by the vulnerability that these authors have shared, and me too, because I've talked about spasmodic dysphonia, but not quite the way that I did in this book. And everybody has tips and tools and strategies that can help you feel radical freedom. And that's what this book is all about. It's about stepping into freeing your creative soul.
Lovely. Yeah, it's doing something different, right? It's like, Clarissa, you talked about, and I'm sure I can't wait to get my hands on the book, because like the inspiration and the ideas, right, from hearing so many stories of what others are doing, like, take something, take the tiniest thing, do something different, take a tiny step, right? It's not meant to, you don't have to change the whole world tomorrow, right? Like, you don't have to turn your boat upside down, but you have to turn your boat in the direction you want to be going. And that's the action piece. And I love this conversation today, because I mean, the 3 of us can sit and talk until the day is long about this, right? And what's the action that folks are going to take? Is like, come away from this podcast, come away from the book, come away and do something that you can think of, anything, as long as it's different from what you did before.
And doing something can also mean stillness.
Yes.
And that's a choice. Absolutely.
I want, because, right, we live in a culture, in a society where when we say go do something, people are like, okay, now I have to create an action. I have to do a thing. And maybe what you need is, Clarissa, what you had shared, right? What gift you were given by needing to slow down and actually find that stillness so that you could hear what was next.
Yes. And that is I love that. And in my chapter, spoiler alert, I give you a lot of journal prompts so you can sit and be still.
Ooh, I love that. Good stuff. So what else do we want to be sure that people know is like that nugget that nugget of wisdom that we each heard today that we want to take away with us?
Well, I'll share, Kim, what you said at the beginning about vulnerability. I too thought I was super vulnerable. I just thought I was like sometimes too vulnerable. But I too have learned there's much more there. So that's what I'm taking away.
I'm taking away like your whole story, Clarissa, right? Like that no matter what we think is our path, maybe that's not it. When we have a challenge that comes before us, to sit in it, but to find our way through it, right? And take that lesson with us, take that learning with us, and create our own new path. Paint your own new path.
Beautifully said. I think for me, my takeaway is it's in the title of the new book, Clarissa. It's this idea of radical freedom. It is, it kind of combines what we've all said here. So Louise, do something different. Just do something different. Whatever it is, stillness or action, like do something different. Finding the freedom within us, learning to paint our path, learning to dream again, and being that 5-year-old and being in play, right? And then that idea of coming back to self, which is what the heart of empowerment and embodiment is being in self. And so that whole idea behind radical freedom to me encompasses so much of the different things that we were talking about today. So that's my little nugget and a little shout out for the book.
Oh, thank you so much. This was so great.
So Clarissa, what else would you like to make sure that people know that how to get in touch with you, what you have coming up in the world?
I'm just going to say, tune into my podcast as well, Painting Your Path. And I think that's a great place to start.
I would agree.
Thank you.
Yeah. Louise, do you have anything coming up in the world we want to let people know about?
I do have something coming up in the world. And so I have this little mini program that I've just recently launched called Ignite Your Career. So I would love folks to, that's that little tiny thing, right? That little tiny spark that we need to do something different. That's what this is all about. And so I'll put that out there so you can check that out on my website.
Awesome.
Kim, and you?
I just invite people to come check out their Strengthscape profile. It is the gateway to self-mastery. It is, I take 7 different assessments, and by assessments, they are non-judgmental. It is just a fun peek into you, and I weave them together so that you have this document. So for somebody who loved Dungeons and Dragons, so I was a big D&D player, it is your character sheet to yourself. So it's just a nice little snapshot to let you know who you are and help you guide yourself continuously back to yourself. So that is my invitation, is come check out your own Strengthscape profile. So,
cool.
Yeah, pretty cool. So Clarissa, thank you so much for making time and sharing your beautiful story with us. We are just so honored to have you with us, and excited about all the things that you're doing in the world right now.
Thank you so much. This was so great.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for tuning in today. And we'll see you.
It's true. We will. Okay. Bye everyone.
Bye. And that's all for this week's episode of the Empowered and Embodied Show. We hope today's episode has sparked something within you. Remember, we're all on this journey together. If something did resonate with you today, why not share it with a friend who might need to hear it too? You can find us everywhere you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're feeling generous, leave a review. Your feedback not only helps others find the show, but also helps us understand what's most valuable to you. Until next time, be kind to yourself, stay curious, and remember, we're walking right alongside you. Thanks for being part of our community.